Check 1, 2. Yeah. What's up, everyone? This is Scobie1, Mandy Moorehol. Ooh, over there, Mandy Moorehol. This is the Skeleton Key to the Towel of Minerva podcast, episode 1. And we're just going to talk about the book. Mandy, introduce yourself. Who the fuck are you? What is this book about?
I'm Mandy Moorehol. That's all you need to know about me. The book is every inside joke you've never been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like you understand anything about the book, you're just convincing yourself that you're part of the inside joke when you're not actually on the inside of the joke.
That's fair, because I wrote the book and I still don't know what the fuck they were talking about. So,
well, you're on the inside of the joke.
Okay, so I'm too into the joke to know what the fuck the joke's actually about. So it's all about me. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, joke's partially on you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you literally know nothing about the book that you wrote.
Right. Fair enough.
So this podcast and the Skeleton Key is designed to teach you about the book that you wrote, even though that you're not the target audience for the Skeleton Key.
Mm-hmm.
The Skeleton Key is for Medea. Princess Medea. On her trip to Mars, she takes off from Earth in the year 3027.
Yes.
And she's on her way to Mars for the Deltron 3030 festival. Every inside joke you've never been part of.
It's an inside joke that even she might not get. You know what I mean? Like that's a.
Well, she necessarily can't get the joke because she's almost 100 years or 1,000 years further in the future than we are.
1003. Almost 1,003 year.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're 2024. She's 3027.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, that's good. That's good math on you. Hey.
Yeah. I ironically don't believe numbers exist, but I can still do math.
Do you?
Well, they don't exist.
Yes.
Numbers fundamentally don't exist. They're not.
Please tell me more.
They're not a real thing. They don't exist in reality. It's just a concept that we attribute to things. You know what I mean? You can look down at your own hands. Scobie, look down at your own hands. Yeah. Down at them, the two, side by side, right?
Yeah, got it.
How many hands do you have? No. You have one hand on your left, one hand on your right. Sure. They're two independent objects. It is you that is lumping them into the concept of two. You're adding the concept of two to your hands. Mm-hmm. You imagine if you cut one of your hands off and you anthropomorphize it and you said, "Hey, hand, tell me about yourself." The hand would never say, "Oh, I'm one of a pair." That's incoherent nonsense, right? Mm-hmm. It's exactly like if you were going to try to talk to a dog. You wouldn't understand a single thing that a dog has to say. You would never understand a single thing that a dog could communicate to you because fundamentally their mindset is nasal, right? Most of their neuro-linguistic reality, most of their reality tunnel, a dog's reality tunnel, is formulated by their nose and the experience of smell. Whereas humans have neuro-linguistic reality tunnels that are fundamentally designed around communicating what we see and what we hear, right? So dogs have a fundamentally different way of experiencing the world than humans do. And our language, for as long as language has existed, has been mostly designed to communicate what we see and what we hear. So our book is essentially designed to get you to think about what it is like being a dog, right? And thinking about recognizing your limitations in your language to describe your own sense of smell. So this runs throughout the entire book. And what we're doing is basically going back to what the ancient Greeks and what the Romans and the Turks and all of the Scythians and all of these people had to say about their sense of smell. Mm-hmm. Turns out they also suffered from the same problem that we do.
A lack of ability to explain what smell is through vocal.
Yeah, it's impossible to describe an aroma.
Yeah.
As an actual description that you can communicate. You're immediately in the realm of poetry.
Yeah.
Right. Anytime you
Right.
describe and it doesn't matter if it's a good smell or a bad smell, you're doing poetry.
Kind of reminds me of a bit of like a sommelier where they're describing the wine and the taste and the what the experiences that you are having could influence you, right? Like is that are we am I
Yeah. Your Scobie One, the beat song. You understand that I'm making a joke about you in this
fucking asshole.
entire, dog-like thing.
But at the same time but that's the intention of trying to uh, like sommelier, do you think they're trying to influence you with a smell to create some sort of nostalgia? Like, this smells like, tastes like grapes. This tastes like earthy tones with a hint of honey. And you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It's sophistry.
Sophistry.
Yeah, it's the ancient Greek term for being a bullshit artist.
Okay.
And your bullshittery is based in words. It's word-based bullshittery.
Mm-hmm.
You're not describing the actual reality of a wine. You're describing, you're putting together flowery language with an intention. Usually with a sommelier, it's with the intention to impress and to sell you the wine.
Right.
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 It's propaganda. It's not actual, a description of what's actually going on. Right. And then, you get your sporting your sporting sommeliers that can like which region of so and so is from blah 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 blah, and that's just it's just autistic bullshit.
Yeah, inside baseball shit where it's like, hey, these were grown on a cliff,
Not even that. It's just bullshittery where it's like you turned wine into a sport, which is disrespectful to Dionysus.
Yeah. Okay.
Quite
frankly. Go on. I'd like to hear this a little more. So why is it disrespectful to Dionysus?
Dionysus is the god of wine.
Yes.
And the god of spontaneity and being in the moment and being having a good ass time. Where if you're taking Dionysus and you're applying some systematized fucking
premeditated kind of like we want you to feel this way kind of.
I'm talking about sport.
Yeah,
sport sommeliers where you have people that are doing competitions.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's what I'm talking about right now. That's disrespectful to sporting, wine sports.
Wine sport. Okay.
Yeah, it's very dumb. I've participated in it. It's all bullshit, and you're just using words to you're fundamentally, even if you're doing the sophistry, which is when you're trying to do the propaganda and you're selling wine to impress people and
right.
That's still bullshit, because you're fundamentally not describing the wine in itself.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Because the wine is it's fundamentally just water and some chemicals and some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're not when you're smelling something, say raspberries, you're not smelling when you're trying to describe the smell of raspberries, you're not describing the chemical compound. You're approximating, right? Because chemical compounds, especially with aromatics, they carry over and they cross over, and in different combinations can present in reality as a different thing. But in the real world, they're just chemicals.
Well, that's a good point, because hardly ever do sommeliers actually describe the mouthfeel, right? They kind of touch on it, but it's always like what you're smelling or what you're tasting. It's never like this wine is, hold it in your mouth and it really just sits. It doesn't, that doesn't happen too often. You know what I mean? Like or like, hey, if you drink this one too fast, it hits you right in the chest and oof, it lights you up, like it's always like, hey, this one tastes like grapes and it reminds you of a summer breeze, and it's it's always like trying to paint a picture for you to get you in some sort of state to enjoy, as opposed to like, well, this one might really get you fucked up because it's 15%, or they're never really putting it on the nose. Is that, what do you think about that? No?
Well, it's true for any smell that you're describing.
Right.
You can never smell the thing in itself.
Okay.
You're only approximating, especially when you're putting in something into language, right? And a lot of the times you're smelling, if you smell something that you've never smelled before, it's not in your repertoire. It's not in your catalog. So you are going to approximate something that you have previously smelled, and use that knowledge as a comparison to what it is you're smelling currently, right? So notice how anytime you're using, you say, "Oh, it smells like this."
Yeah, you're drawing a simile to something.
Exactly.
Which is funny because when I would do wine tastings and be like, "Oh, it's like an apricot," and I'm like, "Well, I've never had an apricot. Don't know what that smells like."
If you've never had an apricot, you're never going to pick up on an apricot, but you can describe, "Oh, it's kind of like a cherry." It's like, okay, cherries and apricots are both stone fruits.
Stone fruit, so is apple.
Apples aren't stone fruits.
Are they not?
No, apples are apples.
Sorry.
Okay, just take my word for it.
Got it.
Apricots and cherries, they have a pit in the center.
Avocado?
Different thing, but okay.
Well, give me one more. The apricot, cherry, what else is there?
Anything
we need to try it. Give me a third one. The peach? I don't know. A mango?
Nailed it. Peach.
Mango?
Peach has a pit.
Mango?
Peach is a stone fruit, right? A mango is a tropical fruit. That's a different kind of thing. Tropical fruits are their own category, right?
Okay, we don't have to go there.
We don't have to go there. But when you're smelling something, right, and you're trying, especially a wine, you'll take a sniff of it, and what you usually want to do is approximate the furthest on the outside, right? Oh, it smells fruity.
Right.
And then you take another sip and you go, what kind of fruit?
Ooh.
Oh, it smells like stone fruit.
Right.
Okay, that's, you're eliminating, it's a process of elimination with aroma. Because that's a process of approximation, right? You're eliminating things that it's probably not, right? So if you smell a wine, you go, oh, it's not tropical fruit. It's not apples. It's not berries.
Yeah.
Right? And you go, oh, it's stone fruit. So you go, okay, is it an apricot? Is it a cherry? Is it a peach? Is it, what kind of stone fruit is there? But there's no guarantee that the actual chemical that's responsible for that aroma is the same as the chemical that's in there that's responsible for apricots. Well, it could be a combination of things that is presenting apricot-like. You know what I mean? Because there's a very specific aroma compound that's a long series of numbers and squiggly lines that says this is the aroma responsible for the chemical compound responsible for apricots.
Well, and
most people have, they don't even know that there is a chemical compound aroma, responsible for apricots. So you're not actually describing that chemical compound.
No.
You're describing your previous experience. If you've never experienced apricots, you can't describe or approximate. You're never going to describe that very particular chemical compound because you've never crossed paths with it.
Well, so you're crossing poetry with experience, and then the funny part is none of it's negative, right? It's always a positive experience, right? There's no like, hey, this wine tastes like kimchi. You know what I mean?
Oh, there's bad wine.
Well, yeah, it's called vinegar, right? But like, there's no like, well, if you have this one and it sits on your tongue too long, it tastes like kimchi. To me, if you said that, I'd be like, all right, give me that.
Stop. The very first question that any sommelier is trained to ask you is, do you like the wine?
Okay.
That's your first question. It doesn't matter what wine it is. It does not matter what wine it is. You can hand me any glass of wine, and I can walk you through how to do a wine tasting. Yeah. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, do you like it? Yes or no? Because then we can go, okay, well, what do you like about it? Right? Then you can go and open that. It's all sophistry. All right? You're asking.
What does that word mean,
Johnny?
I really don't actually know.
You don't know what the word sophistry means? So here's what we're going to do. In post, we're going to take the YouTube, the Wikipedia, and go.
Yeah.
No, we got it up on the screen.
Yeah. But what can you tell me what sophistry means? And then I will.
It's being a bullshit artist with words.
Okay.
All right. It's bullshit artistry.
So do they teach you this, or is it a?
Who's they?
They is the big they who controls everything, right?
Well,
But
so
no, like
sophistry in ancient Greek was looked at as a mediocre art. It's a lesser art. It's bullshit. It's not philosophy.
right.
It's anti-philosophy. It's anti-philosophical.
It's marketing. It's
Yes, it's just propaganda. It's all bullshit art. It's not actual philosophy. Our book, we're doing satirical philosophy, and at times we're doing philosophical satire. So we're playing with that duality at all times. Or for the reader, you have to go, is this philosophical satire or is this satirical philosophy? You have to understand, use your same principle as anything that you're interacting with. You're basing off of your prior knowledge of it. Right. Most people don't even know that there's a difference between satirical philosophy and philosophical satire. Most people don't even know that it exists as a possibility, as something that they could be reading at all.
I don't think I knew until we started writing the book that there was such a deep level to satire. I thought satire was just comedy, right? I thought that I was just making fun of the world around you in a funny way,
Yeah, and little did you know that satire isn't just comedy.
No.
It can be satirical tragedy. It's
right. Well,
it's not a genre. It's not a style. It's not a, it transcends all of those things.
You call it a mode?
Yeah, you can think of it as a mode. You can think of it as a tradition. You can think of it as a vehicle. You know what I mean? It's a thing that, I prefer to use the terminology tradition because that's the grunt and groan that I think best describes what satire is and has been, rather than a mode or a vehicle or a process.
Well, yeah, those get complicated and sound too, scientific-y, and you're trying to take away that type of, it's almost like removing the woo-woo from, sitting quietly and being with yourself. It's called meditation. Also called just sitting still for a few minutes and enjoying the bees and the frogs and the noise around you, right? What do you...
So anyway, our book is essentially, we are demonstrating, we're guiding the reader through what it is that we are describing and trying to get across, while simultaneously performing the theory that we're describing and trying to get across, right?
Right, yeah.
So, we're teaching people how to go on an olfactory odyssey using trifold time, past, present, and future, using by eliminating the linguistic hangups that we've had over the past 6,000 years of interpretation and hermeneutics,
right?
And saying, get to the anthropology, get to the material, get to what all of these people were describing in aroma, right? And that can teach you about their culture, that can teach you about their language, that can teach you about, the way that they view themselves. They can teach you about their identity. It can teach you about the relationships between other people. You know what I mean? Because all languages and all cultures and just about everybody who's ever grunted and groaned to try to describe how a fart smells is just...
But those are like fundamentals, right? Dick, fart, and poop jokes are just like it transcends time and all bounds. I mean, still, I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. They still make fart and poop jokes. That's hilarious,
Yeah, Neanderthal 2-year-olds and 6-year-olds made fart and poop jokes.
Guaranteed, yeah, absolutely.
They had a fundamentally different, very similar to our, modern humans that you and I are, but they had their own neuro-linguistic reality tunnels, and we don't have any of their writing to us understand how they approximated language or approximated aroma. So we have no idea what their mindsets and what their, relationships with aroma and the aromas, around them. We don't know how the aromas have changed. We don't know, up until 10,000 years ago, I think, when we have actual writing,
right,
did anybody try to describe aroma. And even until then, up until 6,000 years ago, maybe.
Right.
You know, do we have anything that isn't just like a, you know, a tally mark or, you know, a receipt, a grain receipt or anything like that? Do we have actual poetry?
Right.
You know,
when does that sort of start?
What?
Well, when does the real describing the world around you kind of start?
You mean symbolic literature as opposed
exactly.
to like grain receipts and tallies
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff, it's guaranteed that it existed side by side.
Of course, it existed vocally, but like without.
No. I mean, writing probably existed side by side with, you know, more of your record keeping and that sort of thing. But the earliest surviving writing that we heard, record keeping. And then we have essentially, you know, we have like the Epic of Gilgamesh and Sumerian stuff and all of that. But the problem with a lot of that stuff is that, and this is sort of the secret of ancient. It's like one of the. It's an open secret, but it's still a secret. You have to actually like study this stuff. But a lot of the records that we have are literally children's homework. This is true.
So what?
Like
Please tell me more.
Well, so you don't get a very, very. I don't like to use the word primitive or unsophisticated or civilized.
Use
or
whatever word
like
you
that.
want.
What I'm just saying is that those aren't the words that actually describe these people. They were still
fair.
sophisticated people.
That's But
what we have that survives is literally children's homework that was found in toilets.
Well, okay.
It's true. It's true. This is the historical record for thousands of years. We have things that are found in latrines and toilets, and it's a lot of the time not like adults that are writing it or, you know, well-trained, educated people. It's children that are learning to write and stuff like that. So that's why like the Epic of Gilgamesh is written at essentially a 3rd grade reading level. It's not because that's what the culture surrounding them was, you know, that's not the best writing of that culture. That's the only surviving writing, and it was written by the equivalent of a 3rd grader, right? And it's very, it's not right. And you know, even with like the stuff like the Bible, right? We have a lot of biblical writings that, when you look at the original language that it was written in, it's juvenile, it's childlike. And the reason is because it was probably written by a child. Like these are things that the motifs and the way that the stories are written, you know, the training that kids went through, you know, they were trained on how to, you know, how to do this. It's called mimesis or whatever. And there's a whole like process of education in the ancient world. And, you know, you can look at their syllabus for what it's like to write at a 3rd grade reading level or a 3rd grade writing level. And go, oh shit, like so much of our history is written at this level. It's not like, you know, people with the equivalent of PhDs that are writing this stuff.
But don't you think that that's probably the easiest way to convey a story, is at some sort of lower reading level, as opposed to like, oh, you got to know what all these fucking words mean in order to really understand the goddamn.
Well, that's assuming that the people in their language in their time actually had words for it,
right?
Because, you know, you got to keep in mind that a lot of this stuff was sung. A lot of these these are oral traditions that adapt between, you know, that are exchanged between community to community, largely at like agricultural festivals, or when you have migration patterns for nomadic peoples, you know, semi-agricultural people. You know, most of the historical record that we have was written by agriculturalists, people who were farmers. All right. And then we don't have a lot of hunter-gatherer writing.
No, I don't think we have any. Do we have any?
We do.
Okay.
It's just a problem that it's written differently because it's written for a different purpose. It's written differently in ways that are hard to interpret because we have an inherited 10,000-year-old agricultural mindset. All right. Fundamentally our language, our way of life, our way of being as people descended from Europeans and, you know, all that stuff, it's fundamentally agricultural, right? So much of, and even though, you know, I'm a farmer, you're not a farmer.
No.
You're still an agricultural mindset, right? You live in a post-agricultural society. You have a
Sure.
post-agricultural mindset, right? This is still very true for, say the ancient Greeks, which is when we get to a lot of the epic potent, that sort of thing.
So do you think they're like one of the first societies who got the time to just sit down and think and come up with cool ideas?
Hunter and gatherers have more time to do that than agriculturalists.
Oh,
This is fundamental, like basic anthropology.
never
It's a
took So hold on. Let's just draw this right now. I study STEM and engineering and things. You are on the other side of the world, where like this is I think honestly, if this is going to be super real, sometimes I'm going to ask you a question because I have no idea what you're fucking talking about, because I've never heard what you're talking about, and this is one of those things where like I don't know that. I think like engineering and science and all that stuff starts in like the 1300s.
No.
It
goes way.
I'm sure it goes way back, but like it's like there's a certain point where like
farmers are engineers.
Oh
you got to think about how much ingenuity
I agree.
and engineering went into designing to domesticate animals and stuff. Right?
I'm just saying our current state of education trains certain people to speak certain ways, and I don't know what you're saying sometimes because I've never heard that word.
Yeah, that guy.
Or I've never heard that idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's because you are fundamentally Apollonian.
Yeah.
That guy Nietzsche explains the difference between Apollonian and Dionysian.
Well.
And I try to be the most Dionysian as possible.
And I'm some sort of whatever you call it, Apollonian, where I understand structures and things and whatever. But what the fuck would you?
And I recognize that any structure and any superstructure and base and thing that you can construct can fall down.
Yes.
And I'm interested in ways that all of those things can fall down.
Yeah.
Most of them fall down because of a miscommunication.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more.
Yeah, we think a lot of history has to do with strongman and has to do with superiority of No, it has to do with language.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
It comes down to a language issue. All right? You can convince yourself of all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Because you're using language to convince yourself. You're not using actual real experience and actual, you're convincing yourself of something.
Right.
Or you're letting somebody else convince you of something, and
right.
then you convince yourself that they're right. Right? That's right. It's called sophistry. Sophistry is one of the worst things in the history of human beings, and it's a ubiquitous human habit too. It doesn't matter who you are, you're capable of being a sophist. Right? If you're capable of bullshitting your way through something, you're capable of telling a convincing lie. If you know the way a lie works.
Right.
Children understand how to lie. Right.
Up to a certain point, yeah.
They learn how to.
They learn how to lie. Yes.
So essentially, a sophist is somebody who never got over being a child, and they're an adult with child brain.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. We're getting to the fucking potatoes right here. Okay. So that's fucking great. So do you? Shit. I don't even know how to follow up with what you put me on a place where I'm gonna have to think about what you just said, because that's fucking great.
Yeah, that's philosophy and satire,
not
not sophistry. I'm not being a sophist right now. I'm not bullshitting you about anything. It's critical philosophy, and our book is fundamentally critical philosophy. We ask questions that still to this day blows my mind that no one ever asked the question. No one ever asked that question. Like I'm probably too smart for my own good, and I have a very high IQ if you believe in numbers, but I'm not special. I'm not doing anything special, but I'm capable of finding something in a culture and asking a question that's never been asked before. How the hell has nobody ever asked how many penises the Cerberus have? Right. In the history of the history of everybody that's walked this planet since the Cerberus story has been told, how come no one ever asked?
Well, maybe they've asked, but nobody ever wrote it down, right?
There you go, Johnny.
But this is hilarious.
The thing is that the type of person that would ask that question historically is not the type of person that writes things down.
Right.
Not the type of person that writes books.
Right.
Not the type of person that, does that.
And
because
are you referring to like the Dark Ages where everyone was
I'm
illiterate,
talking
or just
about, so there's never been a time where everybody's been illiterate. There's
okay?
never been
And
a time
we
we don't have a literate society right now. Most people are still fucking illiterate. Even if you can read, you don't understand what the words mean. You know what I mean? Where you're illiterate in one way or another, right? You just happen to have a culture that convinces you that literacy is this particular thing, right? We're as illiterate as most people walking around. We just have convinced ourselves that we are, we have all these words around us. We're surrounded by words and signs and stickers and things, but we don't know what any of those fucking things mean because it's all sophistry that's surrounding us, right? We don't think about the words that are around us when we're reading them, right? You see a stop sign and it's just a symbol, right? You're more likely reacting to the octagon in the red than you are the word stop.
Yeah, my 2-year-old knows what a stop sign is because of the color and the shape.
Not because of the word stop.
He can't read the word stop, right?
Exactly. He can't read the word stop, but he
knows
to
that it means
to
stop at the stop sign.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas my 6-year-old understands and can read the word and knows what the sign means.
But she already had a pre-existing understanding of what the word. So she's taking those squiggly lines and associating it with all of her previous experience.
Yeah, but
that isn't literacy.
No, I agree.
That's still just training yourself to recognize a series of squiggly lines.
So keep it on the stop sign. What would literacy be to understand why the sign is the shape it is and in the color scheme in the
None
words?
Of that has to do with literacy.
Okay.
But
go on.
You're able to literacy in the traditional sense, right? None of that has to do with literacy in the able to look at a word and understand what that word is. But you are still able that it's still you're taking that symbol and understanding that symbol in that shape. Yeah. That's still a certain amount of literacy, but it doesn't have to do with word literacy.
Okay.
Symbol literacy. And what I'm arguing is that most people never get away from the symbol literacy, right? And enter into word literacy, understanding the words around them. They only understand the words as the series of squiggly lines that, with their preconceived experience.
Sure.
Or their previous experience.
Right.
They're still not doing anything different than square, red octagon means stop.
Yeah.
Right? Most people never get out of that phase.
I agree.
You can exist perfectly well in society without it. You know what I mean? Most people, you can be simultaneously literate and reliant mostly on symbol literacy and symbolic logic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Great.
I agree.
So what our book is doing is saying, okay, now eliminate the octagon, eliminate the red, eliminate the word. Can you smell the stop sign and know to stop? What's a stop sign smell like? How do you know? You've never smelled a stop sign.
I've smelled the stop sign.
You've never walked up to a stop sign and smelled it. Never once in your entire life.
Sure about that?
I guarantee you it's never crossed your mind in the 40 years that you've been walking on this planet.
38, thank you.
Close enough. That you've been walking on this planet to walk up to a stop sign and go, what does this sign smell like different from this sign over here? You can't distinguish the difference between the smell of a stop sign and the smell of a fucking yield sign.
Sure. No, you're right. They smell the same.
You don't know if they smell the same. You've never done the experiment.
They could.
You've never done the experiment.
They may know the same stuff.
You don't know that. You're speculating.
Okay, I'm speculating. Well, hold on. Let me run it back to what you're saying is sophistry of under. Hold on. So it's funny because most people will walk around and say a word like laser, right? Laser. If I say the word laser, you and I both know what laser means, right? But most people don't know that laser is actually an acronym to describe a process. Did you know that laser is a thing? It's not just to describe a light. It's hold on, and I pulled it up. I did it. Light amplification by simulated emission of radar. Laser is an acronym, right? But that's to describe a thing. And I think it kind of ties it in a little bit more where it's almost like a recipe, right? Like the word laser is a combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
But your normal person could walk around and just say the word laser, and everyone knows what we're talking about. But few people could actually know what a laser actually is, right? Is that not the same thing? Am I too, quote, Apollonian where I'm going with what you're...
Well, it's a very Apollonian analogy, yeah.
That's fine. That's good with me. I mean, that's my... I'll stay on my train track. I'm good with that.
How Apollonian of you, Johnny. Stay on your fucking train track.
God damn it. I thought I was being creative with that one, too.
You're just
Nope.
You're just being more Apollonian. In your creative...
Stay on my train track is the... Wait, hold on. Can you tell me...
Even at your most creative, you're Apollonian.
Why is train track Apollonian?
Because it's reliant on a system. It's a metaphor for a structure. It's the there are no straight lines in nature. There are no parallel lines in nature.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right? So
I agree.
You're reliant on something that's artificially constructed.
In order to describe the world around me. Got it.
Right?
Cool. Wow, that's fun. I didn't know I did that until right now. I need one of those punch numbers. This is
what the book is about, right? We're teaching you about what all of this stuff.
Well,
and you if you read the book correctly, you can understand. It's like, oh, I'm an Apollonian type person. We're back from the abyss.
Belly of the whale again.
It's ironic that when things overheat, we end up in the abyss because it's supposed to be hot, but it's also described as being really cold down there. You know what I mean?
The abyss is cold?
Yeah, people describe it as being cold, but also really hot. The descriptions of what the abyss is like, the underworld, abyssos. If you're on Mars and you're a Arcturian, or also Cerberusian on Mars, it's called Arcturus is Martian Cerberus in the future.
So where do you draw the line between sophistry and marketing and trying to... I guess is there a line between trying to sell and trying to be a sophist and trying to
if you're communicating in exchange for money, you're a sophist.
Okay. But I thought a sophist meant with ill intent or bad intent, negative intent. No?
Yeah, taking somebody's money.
Well, but you're trading a good for money, right? Is that really wrong?
Yeah, you're fetishizing language and trying to commodify a grunt and a groan. It's very, very stupid.
So what are you supposed to trade for then?
Why do you need to trade at all?
To just give away everything you have?
Why not? Why do you need it? You die. What are you going to do with it?
That's fair. This is... Okay.
You're applying the concept of my thing, but how does it become your thing? It's still its own thing. It's still the thing. What about it becomes yours?
This sounds
at any period of time.
I feel
how does a thing go from being not yours to having some attribute, some quality of yoursness?
I feel like I'm talking to my toddlers now. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't.
This is
toddlers are some of the most philosophical Dionysian.
But why?
Exactly. But that's the thing, is that just because you say, oh, this is mine, or you trade somebody a piece of paper with squiggly lines on it, and now it somehow magically becomes yours.
Right.
How does that make any sense? In the reality, right? In reality. Just like you can't smell the thing in itself, you're only approximating it. Mm-hmm. Just like you don't have two hands, you have one hand on the left, one hand on the right.
Right.
At what point does something become property?
Yeah.
At what point does it, magically possess some sort of an attribute that it already didn't have intrinsically?
Sure, and I don't disagree with you. I just think it's I guess I'm trying to draw a parallel between train track.
Parallels.
Here we go. Train track. Here we go.
Parallels don't exist. Straight lines don't exist in reality.
Well, they do a little bit.
No, they don't. There's not a straight line anywhere on the planet, other than a human-made straight line. It might be true. It is true. That's the
It's a very good derailing of my train track.
Yes, Johnny, that's the Dionysian thing. You need the Dionysians to derail the Apollonians, because if you get too Apollonian, you
I
start
got a
convincing
touch of
yourself,
fucking Dionysian. Come on, man. I like to fucking
yeah,
do nothing.
You're an Apollonian dominant hybrid. I get it.
I like it.
But the thing is that if you let that stuff get carried away, you end up convincing yourself of things that are fundamentally
Sure.
in the real world not true. Like, you have two hands. Like, numbers in general exist. Like, I own this thing. Like,
Right.
this thing is my property.
You want to go there? Papa, well, my daughter's grandfather, and she goes, Daddy, is 0 a real number? And I said, no. And Papa, he said, no, it's not. It's an idea. And she goes, what do you mean? And she immediately understood that it's a concept and not a real number. And then, he kind of messed with her for a minute, and then she just immediately understood, 0's not a number, it's a thing. And then, didn't ask the question after that, which is very, I don't know if that connects to what you're trying to do, but
you conflated 3 things in there with your language, just because obviously you lack the terminology for this being so Apollonian.
Yes.
You conflated a thing, a concept,
yes,
and an idea.
Yeah.
Right. Those aren't the same. You notice how they're spelt differently. The letters are in different orders. The grunt and groan is different.
Your words are spells.
Yes. That's entry level magic, Johnny. Congratulations, you're doing entry level chaos magic. Words are spells.
I got that
Words
from
are magic.
Aaron Rodgers. Thank you.
Yes. Whoever that guy is. Yeah, words
right
are.
Here.
You have an idol?
He's not an idol.
No. That there, an image of a person.
My wife made me this.
But that is
coaster.
But the word for that is an idol.
I don't agree with him on everything.
You don't need to agree. It's not a matter of agreeing or anything. A totem like that, a totem to a person, is an idol. Right?
Okay.
Not the person themselves is an idol, right?
Okay.
A statue of a person, that is idolizing somebody.
Sure.
All right. A memorial to a person, that is an idol.
What's wrong with that, though?
There isn't anything.
Okay.
I'm saying you have an idol.
I do.
Is that idol your idol?
I don't. Hold on. That might be too deep for me. I don't know what you mean. I like him. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't.
So the idol isn't your idol.
He's not I don't idolize him and think he's the most perfect thing
but
ever.
You idolized him.
I didn't make that. My wife made that.
Somebody made it to give to you. It's an idol that.
Because she knows I like both of those people on there. Yeah.
So somebody idolizes him, but you don't idolize him. You see how silly words are?
Yeah.
We're putting together. It's a coherent question.
Okay. No, it's
a very coherent.
We might argue what's coherent here. You're saying idol. You have an idol of an idol, but that's
But you see how you can use the word. So the word smell. Let's get back to smell, right? The word smell you can smell something, and something can smell.
Okay.
You can smell a smell, right? Did you smell that smell?
Okay.
Coherent. It makes sense.
Okay.
So saying you idolized an idol.
Yes.
Do you idolize that idol? It's the same as saying smell a smell, using the same word in 2 different senses, 2 different ways, but they still communicate something as best as you can with grunts and groans. Language is very sloppy, especially our barbaric English language. It's all fucking grunts and groans and bar, right? This wasn't as big of a deal in ancient Greek, because ancient Greek had all sorts of ways of communicating this stuff and fill it in poetic ways.
Sure.
Right? We have smell a smell, idolize an idol.
Right, which I think even just our interaction of like what's an idol, I immediately was like, no, I'm not idolizing him. And yes, he also is an idol. Like, I do like that person, and I would like to be like them.
All I'm doing is demonstrating the same exact thing as smell and smell.
So,
You
no,
can
that's
smell a
what,
smell,
no.
you idolize that.
I'm
That's all
trying to
doing right now.
reiterate what you're saying, which
I'm
is
not
like,
accusing you of being a bad person for having an
oh
idol
no,
of-
that's you.
whoever
You're
this
going.
Roger
You're
guy
going.
is.
You're going fucking
I don't know.
Christian of idolizing a false idol kind of thing.
I'm not saying he's false or true. I'm saying you
Well,
idolize.
he's a real
it.
person. So.
It doesn't even matter. A real person can still be false.
Go on. You want to go there, or you want to keep going?
Oh, we can keep going. We got to talk about the Towel of Minerva. We got to talk about
well,
the Cerberusian school of cynicism. We've got to talk about,
do
Medea. We got to talk about Eris and Hekate. These are all the stuff that we're going to cover in this podcast. But this is trying to get the listener, the viewer, the reader, a little bit of a social lubricant here to understand the mindset that they need to be in simultaneously to understand what the book is doing. Right.
right.
It's fundamentally written, but in two. It has the Apollonian and the Dionysian duality throughout. Right. Because you, an Apollonian, wrote the book and scribed it, not truly understanding what is being communicated.
Apollonian-ish.
My Apollonia has a true name.
Blonga.
Exactly.
I spelled that right. I don't think
It
that's
doesn't
right.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
It was proximate enough.
Yeah.
You know what that bologna smells like.
Fried bologna sandwiches.
Yeah. You have a mind smell going on right now.
Yeah, and that's a
You can't
nostalgic
articulate.
thing. I immediately
But
hold
the
on.
thing
If
is that I just
if-
watched you in the moment.
Yeah, if you
know.
said bologna, I immediately saw the bologna in the frying pan with the cheese in it going. And
Yeah,
put
but
it
you
around and
smelled
boom.
it in your
I
head.
smelled it in my head
Yeah,
immediately.
you smelled it in your head because you have that record of
What
that
is-
prior smell experience.
And you call that
There are people-
gnosis.
I call that gnosis.
Okay.
That's the word for having prior
Nostalgic
knowledge.
nose.
Well, it's not necessarily do with nostalgia, right?
Okay.
You can experience a new smell
Mm-hmm.
and have gnosis, right?
Can you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called thinking. You once you get good at understanding the way that your olfactory faculties work, you get better at being in your own olfactory faculties, right? It's just like when you get an acquired taste to a beer, you know what I mean? Your first
Sure.
beer was disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start to get a taste for it,
Well,
you know what to expect, right? And even with a with like a crazy style of beer, you can ask a few different questions about, hey, what am I going to anticipate here?
Sure.
And prepare yourself
right.
and compare your preconceived notions to what it is that was actually experienced. That is gnosis, right? So if you smell something and you're comparing it to your previous experience to understand how well we were able to anticipate it, right? So trying to understand what the aroma is going to smell like in the future, right? Based off of your prior experiences and comparing that to the actual thing that you experienced. That is simultaneously trifold time.
So
you're thinking in three times because you have the intention of comparing your anticipation to your prior knowledge as your experience.
So is this kind of like the fake grape and fake banana? It doesn't taste like banana, but it tastes like banana? Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so yeah, that's a decent one. So most people living right now in 2024 have the lived experience of tasting a particular type of banana, that's commercially available and distributed throughout the world, right? Most people have tasted that type of banana. Banana flavoring is based off of an extinct banana.
Really?
Yeah, so the banana that banana flavoring is based off of doesn't exist anymore.
Any idea where
it had a fungus and all of that.
Where it's native to?
Wherever bananas are native to. It's all just bananas.
Okay.
But the banana was wiped out by disease. But it existed at a period of time where we were able to make artificial flavoring. So the scientists that created the artificial flavoring were using their experience of that particular banana that was in their time and place. That banana doesn't exist, which is why we have banana flavored things that don't taste like bananas.
Hold on. So is that's gnosis in itself, right? Like that's like somebody 100 years ago. How long ago was this banana?
Just you can round it down to 100. That's probably fine.
We'll call it 100. How that's a long. I mean, that's a long time ago. Really, it for a flavor like what?
Okay, so let me put it this way. Let's think about how in 100 years,
Yeah.
right? Right now we're experiencing bananas that don't taste like the bananas that we eat.
Yeah.
Commercially available.
Sure.
If we have
The
artificial
banana candy,
flavoring.
right?
Now imagine in the year 3027, how many different banana, that's what 1,000 years. That can be 10 generations of banana changes,
Right.
diversion from the banana flavored candy. It's possible that Princess Medea in 3027 still has artificial banana flavoring that is based off of the Cavendish banana that we don't have now.
Wait, so what's the name of the banana?
It's the Cavendish. Is the Cavendish the one? I don't. The word Cavendish just popped in my brain. It's either the one that we have now or the previous banana.
Okay, yeah.
Don't hold it to me. You can fact check me.
I don't give a shit.
Check me in the comments. It doesn't matter. It's just a word.
Yeah.
It's a.
But you're saying that the flavor of banana candy, banana whatever, is a extinct species of banana.
Yes.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Yes. But we're experiencing. So anytime you eat something made that tastes like banana, that's artificial banana,
yeah,
you are doing necromancy.
Yeah. No, it's some
You're
sort of
experiencing something that is currently dead.
Dead, right? Yeah. And gone, and it's so
dead and gone, and cannot be experienced in the wild.
Right. So that's
you can't
kind
go
of like,
and pick and taste a banana that tastes like banana flavoring.
It's like, what does a woolly
still,
mammoth smell like?
You don't know what a woolly mammoth smells like, but there are people that have smelled a woolly mammoth.
Yet there are people who are Homo sapiens sapiens who smelt a woolly mammoth, and we don't have their documented accounts of what it smelled like. Maybe it smelled fucking great.
Who knows?
It could smelled sweet, and who knows, right? Like, you ever smelled an elephant? I mean, elephants don't smell great, but it could have smelled cool, right? Like, who knows, right? Like, it's. And I was just watching, you sent me a video. I was watching a thing, and apparently the last species or last tribe of woolly mammoths died 4,000 years ago. That's not a long time ago. 2024, 4,000 years ago. That's around.
Not very long.
No, it's not very long at all. So that's, people could have smelt those woolly mammoths.
Human beings that look like you and I in our modern form have
Yes.
been around on this planet.
At the same time as those.
Well, they've been around for 300,000 years.
300,000 years,
That's at that as we know right now in the year 2024.
Sure, right.
Right? If you go back even 50 years, they were like, oh, it was only 100,000. It might have been 50.
Yeah.
It just keeps going further and further and further back.
Right.
As
well, but to our secondary root, who was Homo sapiens, which was 500,000 years ago, I think is right.
What are you talking about right now? What are you asking?
So we're Homo sapiens sapiens, right? Which we're a species of Homo sapiens. Okay, so Homo sapiens had subspecies. We're Homo sapiens sapiens, right? I'm saying it wrong. I know that. But if you go back up the tree one branch, right, where everyone came down from, it's about 500, maybe a million. It's not a long time based off of anthropological records. I could pull it up, but we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, you're just doing it in Apollonian structure.
Yeah, because I'm trying to.
I'm
seeing a tree in my head, and then
you're creating a tree that's in your head, and then saying this tree is like this, and then you're creating a structure based off of.
And what do you do when you do that? I would love to understand.
What do I do?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do I do?
if you had to describe how you see that idea. You don't see a tree. You don't see a vine. You don't see.
It's a rhizome.
A what?
It's a rhizome.
I know.
Like a potato that
potato.
grows under the ground.
Okay.
Right? The root structure is chaotic. It's, it goes out every which ways, but it's fundamentally underground.
Sure.
Your Apollonian tendency is to describe, what is available to you and looking up and looking, above the ground. Okay. Whereas the Dionysian, the Cerberesian, describes what's going on under the ground. It's an underground chthonic philosophy that we're talking about. And the reality is what's going on underground. But right? The above ground, that's just the way things are present themselves to us.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But all of the action happens underground.
Agreed. Mycelium, all that crazy stuff.
All the ancient stuff, all the stuff that's necessary to life, all of that is in the dirt. So I look at it as rhizomatic rooting networks, fungal networks, fractal networks, that sort of thing. But not, but it's chaotic fundamentally. It's not linear. It's not clean. It's not easy. Right? And when you think about something that's rhizomatic, right, where it's kind of, you have these little pockets underground, you don't necessarily see how all of the things are interconnected. They can present themselves as being independent and unique, but they're all part of the one network, which is the underground network. They're interacting with everything that's necessary to make all the above ground stuff. You can't have the above ground stuff without the
right, above, so below kind of thing.
Yeah, you're catching on, Johnny.
Okay, so you're not discounting, not that you haven't said that, but you're not discounting my way of thinking as opposed to your way of thinking. I think we need both. The Apollonian tendency is the as above tendency. Yeah, I agree. Sure.
The Dionysian tendency is the as a below tendency. The chthonic.
So below.
All right, that's...
I've never heard it. Okay.
So our book is fundamentally about the underground. That's why we talk about Hades. That's why we talk about the hell.
Cerberus. Right.
Yeah, Cerberus. Cerberus isn't a land dog. Cerberus isn't a wolf that's running around. Cerberus isn't your pet doggo. Yeah. Cerberus is an underground doggo. And shit's different down there.
What's the fucking dude with the boat? Sorry, I can't remember his fucking name. Chiron, right?
Oh, the guy with the river Styx, to Chiron.
Chiron. Yeah,
what about him?
He's below, right?
Yeah, he's in the river Styx. The river Styx is the first river. And the interesting thing about Cerberus is that he guards... Here,
sure. Yeah.
Although if you have... Yeah, Cerberus guards the entrance and the exit.
How does it?
How can you do both those things? You make sure that people don't come in that don't belong.
You've stumped me. I'm trying to... I do not have a response. I don't know if you're asking me, but like...
How would it work in the above? How in the Apollonian would you guard?
Yeah. Still running. It's still running. Yeah. We'll do a 1, 2, 3.
All right. And we're back. Back from the abyss again.
Back from the abyss.
So we were saying there's the Apollonian tendency, the Dionysian describing how to live like an earth. How is it possible Cerberus can guard? What I was trying to ask you, how stand and see where your system...
I would say that you would have multiple people or things who consider themselves Cerberus, and they are all acting in a coordinated effort to guard guard the entrance and exit of said. So you don't know who is Cerberus and who is not Cerberus.
So
some sort of like...
So to do it in the as above, it's reliant on a metaphor.
Right. Yeah.
You cannot guard an exit. But in the underground, because the as above is reliant on two... In the as above...
We're relying on
everything
time.
Is being, right? It is in the process of being, right? And it's also reliant on, because there's only being, because once you stop being, you're dead.
Sure.
And you're in the underground.
Sure.
and things happen to what your being was differently in the underground. So take a
I thought it was.
it's an apt metaphor,
That
so
was
I'm
a
going
cute-
to show you where your metaphor breaks down,
Sure.
right? So what happens when that tree dies
Mhm.
and become time acts different, right? It's not reliant on time in the same, right? When it was alive, it was reliant on the time of day. It's no longer reliant on the time, doesn't have enough, but it still has, it's no longer being, but it is still material, right? It has become something different.
Okay.
And what it has become is a dead tree. Okay. So because it's no longer a living tree, no longer a living being, it is a dead.
Okay.
It is in a state of deadness.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
So time acts differently on a dead thing, and being is a fundamentally different identity, a fundamentally different concept. You're unbeing. What does that do? When you're unbeing, is that a reversal of
Does
becoming?
anyone know?
We don't know. That's
Sure.
the mystery, right?
Yeah.
The mystery is what's happening underground, because you're only really seeing what is up,
Mhm.
right? You're only really seeing and experiencing while you're being and in your time, other things that are being in your time
So
above.
could you call those sub-being?
Like that. That's your Apollonian tendency. That's categorizing.
Sub-being, below being.
Well, I would say that they're becoming something different.
Yeah, no, yeah. Some sort of different.
They're always becoming something different
Sure.
because of time. You start off as a child and you become you eventually become adult. You become a dead person, or you be an elder person, and then you become a non-living person. So your body, your being, and time acts different, acting. When you're at the Cerberus school, before you die.
I still don't know what that means, and I love it every time that you say it. So are you saying that if you don't die, you don't actually die?
Do your Apollonian thing to the...
All right, my Apollonian thing would say that you turn into dirt, and dirt turns into something else, and something else turns into life, and life turns...
But that's the natural cycle.
Okay.
If you can take the Dionysian tendency.
I can't. I honestly can't even... I have no idea what...
How do you die before you die? How do you know that you died?
Yeah,
so think about some of the ways that...
I have inclusion to this, but
okay, so,
go on. This is for
think
the
about,
reader.
So let's use deductive reason. So
Dig duck.
And there you go, dig dug. So look at it this way. How do you know that you died before you died? How do you know that you died? How do you know you didn't do something? How can you convince yourself?
This is... What?
Well, just be in the real world, in the above.
Yeah.
Is there a state of being similar to death?
Sleep.
Exactly, Johnny.
Yeah.
If you were just sleeping,
Yeah.
right? And think about you put yourself in the ancient
Sure.
Greek mindset, right? Use
Yeah.
their deities
Sure.
to describe this, because each of these deities had their realm, right?
Yeah.
Now, there was
Realm within the mind or realm within the experience?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Good answer.
Yes. So there was a deity who was the keeper of the realm of sleep.
Uh-huh.
Her name was Hekate, right? So at night, the crossroad between sleep and that is Hecate's.
I had no
realm.
idea until now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a book.
I know.
But that's Hecate's. Make sure that you come.
She's a Sandman.
Hekate is the Sandman. Put that in the. So that's where this motif comes to, right?
Really?
Yeah, and she's also the keeper of the doggos.
I don't. Is there sources that you have that I can look up that the Sandman is related to Hekate? I mean, can I look up some ancient Greek shit that like this was the precursor to the Sandman idea?
You write it in the next volume of the book, and because we do try full time.
Good answer. Do you? So when you're sleeping, Hekate is doing what? Is she controlling it? Is she's influencing it? She's guiding you?
Yeah. You're in her realm.
No.
You're no longer in your state
Like
of
the
being.
Chiron, like we were talking about, where you're...
That's in death.
Okay, so, but what's the difference between sleeping and death is very...
Well, what's the difference between being awake and... It's as above, so below, Johnny. So as above is your being. There you go. So check it out. So, right, just like you use pinching, right, how we are right now use this metaphor. Say if you want to know if you're asleep or if you're awake.
Yeah.
Hekate is the ancient Greeks had that way of knowing worse.
Okay, yes.
Because you have to get in, and to get out.
Get out. Yeah.
Right?
You have to see the three-headed dog, huh?
If you didn't see the three-headed dog, if you didn't see Cerberus, you did not die. So anybody who has ever claimed to die before they die, so they didn't die when they died.
Above body kind of things, and the whole out of body stuff, and anyone who's like, I've had a,
Yeah,
if they never saw Cerberus, is what you're saying.
They're bullshit. And they never died.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a near-death experience. You were just sleeping.
But how many people have gotten away from Cerberus? Orpheus, right? Is
There's
that
a long list of them. Hercules,
really?
Hercules
Okay.
captured him and brought him to the surface.
Oh, I did not know that, actually.
Yeah,
It's in the classics. I need to read the classics.
Yeah, you need to read Homer.
Who else?
The 12 trials.
Anybody not super famous that's got a cool name?
And do you know who Dionysus' brother?
Hercules. His brother's Hercules?
Dionysus.
So one brother is super fit and the other one's hanging out and drinking wine.
He's the goddamn god of wine.
The other one's the goddamn god of... So that's very... what's that one from the Bible? The two brothers and they all...
Exactly, Johnny.
Yeah.
Who
are they?
Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel, yeah.
Yep.
Story. That story sounds way better. I like that story better.
Well, it's not unlikely that Cain and...
Well, I doubt they fought each other. I bet they were like, hey, one of them wanted to just go fuck a bunch of chicks, and the other one wanted to just hang out and drink wine. And
Oh, no, Dionysus fucked him.
no, that's what I'm saying. And fuck a bunch of chicks. Like, I think their story was like...
Well, actually, a lot of the time, Dionysus is, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And, in a lot of the stories, he doesn't actually participate and stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He just wants to make everyone feel
Yeah, you had
comfortable.
Orpheus, and you have to know how to do it. You know what I mean? If you don't know how to do it, and it takes a very things and
Music.
just because somebody else did it in the past, you do it the same.
Oh,
Right?
your path is unique based on your probably past trepidations of your life and your experience and how
Based
you interpret the underworld.
You wrote a book about Cerberus. You'll be able to.
I
get
got
past.
kids. I got kids to take care of. How about I stay up here for a while?
But anyway, our book is to prepare on when you get down there.
think
as well.
Yeah,
to
I had a
prepare
feeling
for
you were.
how to go down there and come back.
Have you had an experience like this? That I'm gonna get super.
Have I met Cerberus?
No, you haven't. Obviously.
What?
Well, maybe you have.
I have.
Yeah, you have you had a.
Have I met Cerberus? Yes, I've met Earth Cerberus, and I've communicated with Mars. To communicate with Mars Cerberus, Arcturus, you also have to do the same process. You have to understand how to do it, and the Martian land.
I guess I like that answer. I was gonna ask you, how far down the hole have you gone? Have you
I've
been
gone
in?
all the way, and I went back up.
You've been in the belly of the beast. You've climbed
I've never
up.
been in Cerberus.
You've been in the belly of the whale. You think so?
Everyone knows that. You know Thomas Paine? No, in the whale, that story, satire. This isn't news.
And that's where that.
The belly of the whale?
Yeah,
I mean, I would imagine that the ancient Greek story.
probably. I mean, but do you think the belly of the whale is the same kind of story arc kind of thing, or is that different?
What? The Jonah story?
Yeah.
The one in the Bible specifically has to do with the fact that we're writing the story. We're ocean fearers. They were land-dwelling people who feared the ocean. So the story of Jonah and the whale, it's sort of a from the perspective of the land-dwelling. Jonah's being laughed. It's a don't go out there. Bad things happen when you go out there. And he goes, well, I'm gonna go out there anyway.
Moana.
All of these stories, they're all.
It's all an allegory of.
We're just telling the same story over and over and over.
Yeah.
And we're adapting it for. You can tell the Jonah and the whale story.
Yeah.
So if you're a seafaring person, it's going to be a land-based, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just the same psychological thing that you're trying to communicate, right? You're communicating fear, right? What it is that you fear by projecting it onto. That's different from what you normally do. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a cultural thing. It has to do with your time and your place. So we were saying being and time, right? How those two tendencies act upon you. Being and time act upon you when you're doing your mythology as well. So you have to take into consideration the being and the time of communicating the mythology. So you can think of them, not to dehumanize them, land-dwelling beings or sea-fearing beings.
Sea-fearing, right.
Yeah, you see the sea-fearing versus sea-fearing here.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a wordplay, and you caught onto it. Great, Johnny. And if you're not catching on that,
do you think that the people who, the common person knew this type of shit was going on, or was this, and were these like, was there people who knew it and didn't understand it, and or like a hierarchy to understanding? Do you know what I mean? Like at the time, like certain common people were just like, hey, we're just fucking trying to get through our day. Certain people were like, hey, we're trying to understand the world around us. And then there were people who were like, this is really what's fucking going on. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, that's true for anything. So,
okay,
you know, a pop song that you're playing in the elevator.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
If you get
so you think we tell them simpler stories in order to tell the same stories to adults? I mean, it's kind of, I'm kind of telling my own story. Like when you watch kids movies, there's always some kind of like level of like adult humor to it.
Yeah.
Do you think the Greeks were doing the same kind of thing, or?
Well, you have to understand what they understood an adult to be versus, I mean, you were an adult when you were like 12 or 13. Yeah. So we're just fundamentally different in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So asking that question, and it's also, you know, the Greek, it's sort of a misnomer, right? The Greeks, you had tribal people.
Right.
Right. Not all those tribal people were aware of the other tribe,
mm-hmm.
or, you know, really cool. So it really matters when and where you're, but when it comes to human storytelling, play themselves out regardless of the culture.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You always have the dynamic of children.
Yeah.
So you have adults.
Sure.
Right. You fundamentally have to.
Unless they're a shitty adult.
Well, sure, but even your most childlike adult, you talk.
Yeah.
To
that's fair. Yeah.
Right. Like you would never go and like shake a key face.
Mm-hmm.
You do that to a child.
So
all of these things are true regardless of the culture that you're at and what influenced the way. Right. And people have been asking these questions for thousands of years, but it blows my mind that no one had the odd.
Fair enough. So we should not give that away.
That's the mystery that.
Do you think that?
I'm not saying that I don't know. I've been to the underworld and and anybody who tells you that they've gone down or they've had an experience or whatever, or they were probably just.
Well, that's the funny thing is the comparison between sleep and the underworld is, you know, was it the ancient Greeks and the pre civilization not knowing how to explain what sleep was, or was it were they experiencing something differently than us? Like, I mean, consider, like, you know, we sleep in houses, right? We almost everyone, even you, who lives in a barn, we all live in a house with a roof over our head. We're not witnessing the sky as we're sleeping, right? But these people could have been, you know, you had to step out to piss, you had to shit or whatever, you know, you're living in a hut or a tent or whatever, and you had to come out to the world and experience it in the middle of the night. I mean, how many of us have experienced that? Like, there's not a lot of people, at least that I could tell you, who have been out in the middle of the world, in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, just exposed. You know what I mean? Like, you to drive back to your like poop jokes, you have to poop. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. What do? You have no flashlight. You have no lantern. Nothing. It's
stupid.
No, we're not.
Right?
No, even the stupidest people we have are very fucking smart.
So there were ways o'clock in the morning,
right?
Prior to that was a thing that people had out.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of stories do with poop calamities. All right, because it's a universal,
Yeah.
humorous, but it's also can be very serious.
No, it's super serious. It's the
Right, you can. Too much poop can be a sign that you're gonna die.
yes.
The wrong color poop,
Yep.
blood in your poop, things in your poop that aren't supposed. That's
Yeah.
Poop was very important. Poop was the thing that you needed to know for your medicine. That's like a lot of ancient medicine is
Yeah.
for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Because what something's coming out.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what comes out can tell you about the whole process. So you asked before, guard the entrance to the underworld and the exit simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All people can be.
So
Cerberus only has one butt,
Hmm.
so we all share that state.
So
So to think Cerberus, right? So it's not necessarily the head, right?
mm-hmm.
What the Cerberesian school of atabasis,
Mm.
all right?
Mhm.
You're being pooped out.
Well, so are you saying that being a person, you have to experience this in order to, well, almost that Apollonian and Dionysian style of thinking, right? Is there a third way of thinking, which would be
Cerberesian
a
is-
mix of both, or a separation in a complete observation of both? I see both and I don't like it, or not I don't
There's
like
not
it, but
an ethical or a moral.
no, I don't mean that.
Death
I mean,
doesn't care. Death is
no,
there's
I
no pity.
agree. Yeah, no.
All right. One of the things about Cerberus, if you look up as many references to Cerberus, Cerberus has no pity.
Well, pity. When you say pity, you mean
It's the same thing that pity has always meant.
No,
Cerberus,
you
it's
gotta
a lack
be.
it's a lack of. Cerberus doesn't give a fuck. Right.
Okay.
Cerberus's job is to guard the entrance and the exit of the underworld. If you enter the underworld and you exit the underworld, the catabasis
Mm-hmm.
is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
The catabasis doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing when you're doing the catabasis, you are offering Cerberus a treat, eaten by Cerberus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, walked through Hades.
Yeah.
All right, but the thing that you experience is becoming you're literally torn apart by Cerberus, reconstituted in a different shape through Cerberus's bowels.
Sure.
Okay, and the interesting thing is you're devoured by Cerberus, all three heads.
Yes.
All right, and what the three heads do is
Right.
so you're being devoured by the past, the present, and the future, and
Even us
reconstituted.
Apollonians get that.
Okay, and then you're being reconstituted through Cerberus's belly, the belly of the beast, and shit out
Yes.
as a different being.
Or puked.
So,
Certain people have been puked, I think.
you can't be puked out and complete the work that way.
No?
No.
Mm.
So when you're puked out, that means that Cerberus is rejecting you. When you're puked
Yeah,
out, you're
yeah,
stuck.
yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh,
You
you're
get
stuck
you
in
get
like
stuck in the catabasis.
Yeah, you're stuck in
You can
a-
think of it as purgatory if you want.
Purgatory, yeah.
All right, but yeah, you have to enter,
Who?
travel through, and it takes 3 days for this. Cerberus eats you, past, present, and future. You are.
No, I just. I'm drawing.
I'm joking.
No,
I'm
no.
joking. I'm joking.
I'm just drawing conclusions of Star Wars. That's all. Go
yeah,
on.
yeah, exactly. It's because I'm tossing illusions. And you're
I know.
drawing
I just.
So basically, the Cerberesian catabasis
Yes.
is the catabasis
Okay.
that Dionysus, Hercules, truly completed the catabasis. Some may argue Jesus, but so any story that's tell, it's just a stories.
He's some sort of hero story.
Well, the problem with the Jesus story is that the triadic structure was miscommunicated, right? It was basically somebody who didn't. That's why you get the Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
Oh.
Okay,
yeah.
it's important that I explain. So I'll just start from the beginning in the Cerberesian catabasis. All right, the catabasis is the 3-day through the underworld, knowing that Cerberus guards the gate to and from the underworld. What the Cerberesian school knows, right, and it's an understanding of being torn apart by and each head of Cerberus. Each head is by the chaotically, right? It's unrepeatable but what is repeatable? The traveling through, right?
Sure.
And you're traveling through the belly of the beast.
Magic school bus shit.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're traveling through the belly of the beast while being torn apart, and through this traveling through Cerberus's belly process, you're being reconstituted.
Yeah.
So And that's how you return to the and having the understanding and being in the state you have experienced part
at the same time.
Yeah, because each head of Cerberus is past future.
Okay.
Right, so you're torn apart. So your left leg and your right leg, your torso, could all have gone through and being.
Sounds like almost being 40. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you comes the egg, but you can only get out as.
Okay, so you are different when you come through the passage, and so is it similar to like a rite of passage in a way where you've seen death and you've escaped it, and now you are a new person and reborn in a way.
Yeah. It's a death and rebirth. And it takes
okay.
3 years or 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah.
Why 3 days?
That's what all death and rebirth mythologies have to do.
Yeah, good hangovers. 3.
Yeah, sure. There you go.
Yeah.
But there is actually a material reason for the 3 days.
Why?
It has to do with the particular drugs that were used in the ritual.
Oh.
And these were female shaman drugs. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that the males in these female shaman-led societies, you can call them matriarchies if you want. It's a little problematic because it's imagine the end of capitalism, the local society, but the closest and Circe and these are all just names of
but
female shamans. Like they're actual people existed in reality. There were female shamans that were adept at the use of these particular drugs. And what they would do is you have to keep in mind that these cultures, these particular groups didn't value men in the way that we value.
Sure.
Right? They looked at excess men as being used. All right, because that causes war, that causes chaos, that causes confusion and discord and international relations and all of the 5 stages of chaos. Those are because of the male tendencies and the excess male tendencies in these. So what they would do is basically just cast them off to the wild. If they survive, good. If not, whatever. And what you had to do was to kill 3 men before you were able to. Okay, and what it meant by marry was to raid a village and take the most, whatever your culture was, male, and kidnap him. And depending on your culture, they.
You're saying this is a female trait?
What's that?
This is a female rite of passage? Was to raid a village?
Yeah, it was simultaneous. So it was simultaneously a male rite of passage, right? This was a thing that if you were a male in these cultures, could happen to you at any.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Especially if you were one that had particulars found.
Good-looking son
appealing.
of a bitch, huh?
Yeah, huge dong, sure.
Yeah, hey.
They selected for huge dongs. Dude.
I bet they did.
Oh yeah, that was one of their things they selected for, and it was really whatever traits they wanted to pass on, but. So what they would do, you had to kill 3 men before you were able to complete this ritual. And what this ritual was kidnap whatever male you found your village. You would put them on a table flat, right? And you would give them drugs that would send them to the underworld.
DMT.
While, Johnny. So send them to the underworld to meet Cerberus while having a boner for 3 days.
Yeah.
Right? So, when Viagra commercials at the end they say if you have a
72
boner,
hours
exactly. So
72 hours is 3 days, dude.
Nailed it.
Fuck. God damn it.
Yeah. So this is a problem that these female cultures knew about, and what they would do is to give the males the male. You can call him a victim, but it was kind of probably pretty fucking.
No,
cool
he's not a victim.
They're not a victim in this. This is the thing that if you
Sorry,
were selected
bro,
for it,
you're not a victim.
Yeah. So essentially what they would do is kidnap these males, strap them to a board, give them particular drugs. The drugs were a lot of time from the purple from the Murex dye.
Sounds like a terrible time.
It's a terrible time. The drugs would send you to do the catabasis for 3. You get eaten by Cerberus, pass through his belly, and shat out.
Yep.
But what?
Sounds like a Thursday to Friday.
Exactly. But you would be raped
Saturday.
over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So essentially what they turned you into is just, right, you're just there for the purpose of insemination. You're not experiencing the sex. You're not enjoying the sex. It's not there for your pleasure. right? You're just essentially a dildo for breeding purposes. Right? Now, think about what that would do to you if you're one of these people that were selected and you survive and you came back out. You know, you would have to come back after the 3-day process. Otherwise,
you'd probably think you're the best motherfucker ever, right? Or the other way, you think you're like some sort of like.
It depends on if you're Apollonian and Dionysian going into it, how you come out. So you come out as a different mixture than we were. That's
right. Yeah,
you come out different. It doesn't matter how you come out. You're different.
Yes.
Your Cerberus is poop.
You
process.
are no longer the person you came through.
Okay, but here's the even bigger kicker.
Yeah.
Right? If you, as the sperm donor, did not survive this catabasis process, right? They would just flush it out, start over again, right? Because the seed isn't strong enough, right? They're not keeping that baby. That baby's that's not, you know what I mean? Like dad can't go through the catabasis. Flush it out, start over. You had to complete the ritual to be able to breed in this particular culture. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
So
actually.
it's a it's a ritual. It's an as above, so below. Recognize the as above, so below ritual. That's
if I can, it's a lot of these alpha male bullshit. Where like, oh, she likes you now. It's so stupid. You have to be a adaptive male, right? You can't just be one or the other, right? Like you can't just be this alpha male or the beta male, right? You need to be somebody who can work within the community, right? Like,
well, okay, so here's
I don't know. I haven't listened to enough or learned enough about what you're trying to talk about to really get into what you're saying, but I can kind of think about it like.
So think about I told you the actual. So they were doing this inducing with drugs. Yeah. Drugs that would induce a boner. Yeah. And drugs that would induce this comic state that would send you to the underworld and truly meet Cerberus. It wouldn't put you to sleep. It was a fundamentally different it's not the equivalent of having a wet dream because you remember a wet dream. No. Okay, so that's how they knew you weren't dreaming, which is how you knew that you actually truly completed the catabasis. So does this make sense anthropologically, or you recognize the anthropology that's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so you have these women groups that are basically nomadic horse riding women. You think of the Amazons, the Scythians. There were these nomadic horse women that basically you either lived in fear of or admiration of. Sure. Where it's like, oh my God, they can enter my village and raid me and kidnap me and do all these things to me. Or you go, oh my God, imagine if they kidnapped me. Like, you want to make yourself the best specimen. So if they raid your village, you're the one that's kidnapped and gets to go through the catabasis. Because if you're not, they're just going to kill you because you're just an excess male anyway. Right? So you got to think about it from that mindset, right? It's pretty emasculating, but when you think about what it is to be an alpha male, you know what I mean? That's what's sort of happening at these festivals. Yeah. Right? Think about let me put it this way. In our modern day, if a bunch of bikers showed up to, like motorcycle, Hell's Angels showed up to a music festival, right? And started looking around, you're like, oh, they're up to something different than everybody else at this. Sure. What is it that their difference is? Those people, the Hell's Angels, are subject to the law. Very, very, very different than if you have a festival at your little village, a troop of SPAC Amazon women with one breast raid your village and start just scoping things. Right. You know what they're looking for? They're looking for the specimen that they're gonna. You know what I mean? So if you're at an agricultural festival where you're doing things like athletics and you're doing, lifting, skill-based kinds of things, and you get Amazonian women that show up to your festival and are looking, they're looking which one they're going to kidnap and pick and, go through this catabasis risk. All right? Medea, Circe, Hekate, Eris, all of these, names that are associated with ancient sort of negative female goddesses, right? They have this negative connotation because of this ancient tradition of involuntary catabolism. You know what I mean? And that's a way of, you can really regulate some shit just based out of the fear or based out of the admiration. You know what I mean? So they lived in a different psychological state, and they made decisions because of different reasons. You know what I mean?
How much of what you're saying is recorded and like actually like documented and being like, this is what was going on, versus I don't want to say ideological, but like yeah, let's go there. Like, how much of this is documented versus what is a hypothesis?
You want me to give you a number?
No, I'm trying to.
I mean, it's still just a metaphor. I'm saying
No,
half.
I'm trying.
Saying a fraction.
No,
if I'm
even
saying,
even if you said like fucking
it's all
30
simultaneously
seconds
true and false at the same time.
Right. No, I know that, but I'm trying to understand where, because at some point the male dominance becomes thing, and it's like, hey, it's fucking
Exactly.
men is a fucking
okay.
that.
So the patriarchy comes about with the Greeks. So what you have to do, it's a process of deconstruction where you look at the Greek story and you notice most of these female deities in the culture is demonized. You have to read the book, but and it has to do with the fact that there's a transition from a Dionysian matriarchal. Dionysian is essentially a mother god of the Apollonian, which is the father god, the gods of agriculture.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can tell through these ancient Greek stories how old they are, based on how ingrained the patriarchs, right? The very, very, very early stories have to do with, and you can think of the domestication process, right? So human domestication is matriarchal selection. The matriarchal selection, you got to kill 3 men to get rid of the excess one. So that, this problem that we have is very, very small. It's a blip on the radar compared to the 300,000, right? So humans were matriarchal they still are to this day. They're still true.
Yeah, it's just,
but what I'm saying is that up until about 10,000, it was the hegemonic. Right, most human societies were matriarchal. Right, from 300,000 years to 10,000 years ago. That's a very, 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 very long. It's 290 years of matriarchy. Right, there's a reason why that stuff wasn't written down. It's because in a matriarchal society, that's not what's valued. You know what I mean? What's valued is the biggest cock. All right, you go and you found your villager that's got the big dong, and you go and you send him through the catabasis. You pump him and you breed him, and if he comes back from the catabasis, you keep, right? That's how most things lived and existed for 290,000 years. That's how most society was. And then 10,000 years, they started doing agriculture, right? And agriculture is a byproduct of matriarchal medicinal. So women were selecting for medicine, right? And agriculture was a byproduct of women selecting for men, right? And the reason that women were selecting were to reduce the likelihood of, right? The reason that the human population was so small for a very long time is because in a matriarchal society, the biggest risk to the leaders of your society is dying during childbirth.
But that hasn't.
So not every one of them gives birth. Not every. You know what I mean?
That's not a thing. That hasn't changed in 2024. That's still a major risk of life.
Yes.
It hasn't changed at all.
So,
which is fucking crazy to me.
Right. So essentially, what happened was you had most of human civilization that didn't have agriculture. They were matriarchal society, and then about 10,000 years ago, this agriculture thing started happening, right? You had domestication of animals for purposes that were different than medicine, right?
Yeah.
Or for facilitating the growing of medicine. And then the Greeks started, writing stuff down in their poetic language. What they're showing, the Greeks are explaining is, they were going out and basically colonizing and seeing and investigating how people live always.
Yeah.
And they were finding places that were still matriarchal.
Yeah.
You know, they were finding cultures that, you know, that lived on isolated islands, and there were just cultures of 100% women. You know, and they were saying they did stuff like eat and sacrifice children and all that stuff. It's like, well, I mean, you know, there's a reason why they did it. Like, it's not, like, it's our moralizing that makes that stuff seem bad. But,
Sure.
you know, that's how humans lived for 290,000 years. You know, and the Greeks were making the same exact observation, going, yo, there's these matriarchal societies that are doing all this crazy shit. Like, you know, that's what most of, like, you know, the Odyssey and stuff is about. Like, you know, the Jason and the Argonauts, the first fucking trip that the first island that they stop at is the island of Lemnos, which is the island of the smelly women, back to the Gnosis, right? And it's like, why did these women smell? The patriarchal story was they were cursed for withholding sex from their husbands, right? And Aphrodite made their pussy. That's literally what it says in Jason and the Argonauts. Yeah. The first island that they go to is the island of the smelly pussied women. Okay. Yes, that's the first stop in Jason and the Argonauts, right? So, you know, and that's very, very important to the Cerberus school of cynicism. You know, one of the questions is, well, why were their pussies smelly compared to what pussies were their pussies smelly, right? Like,
well, it sounds like a fucking story, right?
So anyway, that's the first stop of Jason and the Argonauts, is the island of Lemnos, the island of the women with the smelly pussy. So, you know, that's one of those demonstrations of matriarchy versus patriarchy. Like, in a matriarchal society, the way that you breed and the way that you procreate, it's not for the pleasure of men, right? So if your pussy smells, it doesn't matter, right? It's looked at as different. You know what I mean? Like, how do we know that the leader wasn't picked by the one with the most pungent pussy? We don't know that. What we do know is that their pussies were pungent.
Okay.
And we know that the way that Greek men responded to the concept of pungent pussies, right? They responded in a patriarchal way, where that was looked down upon. So, so you asked how much is what I'm saying true? It's like, no, or how much is in the sources? It's like, well, the Greeks were doing colonization and recording matriarchal women with pungent pussies. So, like, that's in the sources. So how much is what I'm saying true? 100% of what I'm saying is true. You just have to understand why I'm saying it the way that I'm saying it. Right? Like, we wouldn't have sources for women with pungent pussies if women with pungent pussies didn't exist. Right? You don't you know what I mean? It's like saying, like, oh, you wouldn't have laws against shoplifting unless people were shoplifting. You wouldn't have laws against beating off in public unless people were beating their dicks in public. Right? Like, you don't have laws against things that don't exist. Right? There's no law against
what year was this?
Jason and the Argonauts?
Yeah.
It's like 500 BC, dude. 500
BC?
Yeah, this is very, 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 very long time ago.
It's hilarious to think about, but do you...
But what I'm saying is that there's a Cerberusian way of interpreting the pungent pussies, right? And that's with trifold time. Past, present, and future simultaneously, right? Now, the great thing about past, present, and future simultaneously is that you can do it as a fractal, where if you can understand your past, present, and future, which means that you can shift back a little bit, to somebody else's past, present, and future. So you understand the way that they relate to your past, because their past is also your past. But you're putting yourself into their present, which means that your future is their, or your past is their future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what that does is it basically makes it so that you aren't projecting anything that happened between their present and your present, right? Because you're combining the future and the past philosophically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
you're doing a fractal combination of the future and the past, and what you're using that for is deduction. Right? You are eliminating certain things that are not true.
Yes.
Right? There are misconceptions.
Well, I think that's called mindfulness, right? It's where you're like, hey, like the past and the future do not exist. Right now is the only time, and anything else is a concern of anxiety or not depression, but like, you know.
It's a figment of the imagination. It's an illusion. It's
Yeah,
a thing that you were. It's a violence that you are doing to yourself that is unnecessary.
Oh, that's a great.
All right,
I love it.
That self-violent tendency is Apollonian, not Dionysian.
I agree.
All right, because
yes,
it's a fault of your own.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not being true. You're not being real, and you're not being real to yourself. You're not being authentic. You are setting up a structure beyond you and relating everything that you are and you know to that structure.
Yes.
Right? You got to recognize that everything that you are going to be and everything that has been is below all that.
Yes.
So you're ultimately going to turn out to that.
Right.
And all of this structure is a house of cards and can just collapse. And do you want to get stuck in it, or do you want to be the one standing outside laughing and saying, I fucking told you so?
I fucking told you so.
All right. The Apollonian tendency. All right. You can describe it as it's not autism. All right.
No.
Autism is when you are obsessed with how trains work.
Sure.
Okay.
Go on. Please go on.
Cerberisian, Dionysian, schizophrenia is when you are obsessed with how trains can go wrong. Okay. Being obsessed with how trains work is an Apollonian autism that manifests itself.
Sure.
All right. Being obsessed with how trains can malfunction and go wrong.
Yeah.
All right. And going, I told you so. Even if it's a 1% chance, the I told you so is so satisfying. Right?
So many people can get caught up in that. Yeah. I think we got a good amount. I just want some closing ideas from you. Just a little crescendo.
Okay.
Some sort of like, what do you... Fucking goddamn it. Do you... What is your thoughts on the...
My Dionysian tendency outdid your Apollonian tendency, Johnny. It's every time. So essentially it's like a intellectual arm wrestling contest.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right.
Yes.
I can just wear you down and wear you down and wear you down and wear you down.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're building structures.
Yes.
Where what the Dionysian and Cerberisian tendency is trying to communicate is that all of those structures are basically just pipe dreams.
Yeah.
Right? There's a few ways you can deal with pipe dreams. You can just let them collapse in on their own, or you can use pipe bombs. Both are acceptable, right? You can take the long term or the short term. Because essentially that's the pipe dreams and pipe bombs tendency is Eriscian. Mm-hmm. So that is everything that Eris does. That is how Eris controls. I would just say that's how Eris controls. Because she is the true mother goddess. She's the one that all others came from. She's the daughter of Nyx, right? The daughter of night. She is chaos embodied. She's strife. She is everything that is the chthonic Dionysian matriarchal experience. Right? Both of us are human beings that possess penises in 2024 all right, and sure. We our mindset and our way of being is descendant and genealogical from 10,000-year-old patriarchal agricultural tradition,
right,
leading into that led to slavery and all of those things, and war and pestilence and famine and plague and all of those things. And then eventually you get some like really nice pretty buildings and stuff out of it sometimes. You know, you get pyramids and all sorts of things to go, ooh, you know, who cares? You know, but all of those things are a result of this Apollonian patriarchal agricultural tendency.
Right.
Right. For most of human civilization, it was not that. Right. Which is why you don't have an industrial revolution predating our modern industrial revolution. You know, the Romans had a little bit of one. You can see that in like the ice records and stuff. But in the ice records, for most of human civilization or existence, not civilization, human existence, there wasn't that, right? Because they were making decisions differently. The reason they were making the decisions differently was because they were matriarchal, not patriarchal. They were, you could call them hunter-gatherers. I would call them more of medicinal, you know, the ways that they were dealing with their domestication of things was for the purpose of medicine, not for the purpose of food.
Yeah.
All right.
That's based off of your ideas of ergot and different kinds of...
This is based off of the current state of anthropology.
Right.
Nothing that I'm saying about matriarchal societies and non-agricultural societies and all of that is, you know, outrageous to anybody who actually studies anthropology. Right. Like we're talking about actual existing human societies, not mythological existing human societies. Right? Most mythological human societies or most mythology is patriarchal and agricultural.
Yeah.
Right. Even
funny
up to
how that
our
works.
day. Even up to our day. Right.
Yeah.
We still have agricultural based myths. We still have patriarchal based myths. You know, we have a patriarchal based society, right? Like, no matter how you cut it. So what would it look like to, you know, take what we have now and turn it into a matriarchal society, right? You would end up actually just sending all the fucking useless men to Mars.
That's very true.
Which is what Princess Medea's society did. Princess Medea, who ultimately is the person that read this book that we wrote on her trip from Earth to Mars. It's a 3-year trip, right? The reason that's a 3-year trip is because trial and error, you know, 1,000 years of sending the useless males out into space.
And I would just qualify, like, the useless males will be the type of men who can't get along with other people, right? Like the type of dudes who would be like, hey man, why the fuck are you being such an asshole right now? You know what I mean? Like, could you agree with that? Like,
okay, so
like why are you, you know, like
a non-useless male in a matriarchal society is castrated.
Sure. Okay.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You still have all the
and
male
a matriarchal.
physiology.
So what would make a good male? Right, like somebody who can be.
It depends on the time and place, Johnny.
Sure,
so,
that's fair. No, but
you know how. Well, so here's the thing. You know how
Yeah.
you know you can take and see how people changed from you know the Greeks up until now, and that was 3,000 years. We're talking about triple that.
Right.
I mean, not triple that. Like 300
quadruple.
No. It's even more than that. We're talking about an order of magnitude more than that.
Yeah. I don't think we can.
2 orders of magnitude more. Johnny.
Sure.
We're talking about we have 3,000-year-old tradition of this patriarchy stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about an almost 300,000-year-old tradition of matriarchy.
Right.
That was right. Like it was very, 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 very different. So we're only just now still trying to figure out this patriarchy stuff. They had the matriarchy stuff figured out for a very long time. You know, and it didn't have the problems that we have. So what was it to be a good male or a useful male? Was dependent on the time and the place and the women that were running the society, right? And most of the time, you didn't get a choice to be one. You were either you died when you were really young. You go, oh well, life was short and brutal and yada yada yada. It's like you either died at childbirth, you know, or you didn't have what it takes to make the cut to be a part of the society. You don't want to have a burden on your shoulders, right?
Right.
You know, it was bad enough that they risked dying during childbirth to have you. If you're going to turn out to be anything other than worthy of that risk, why are you going to be kept around, right?
I mean, that that paints a parallel picture to, similar kind of ideas where, like, during the I don't know if you watched The Walking Dead, but there was a patriarchal society that were basically, it was all women, and then, like, they had one or two men, and they had to very just, like, check them out. Like, is this guy got any hesitance or any tendency to, like, that rage or anything that could be, problematic, right? And there was, like, one male that just stood out within this society, and they were all like, man, I didn't watch enough of it, but it was like it was like this own society, and there was one man, and he was, like, in there, and he was, like, loved by everyone and kind of thing,
Yeah. Well, that gets down to the that classic Cerberusian school of cynicism saying that it's easier to imagine the end of capitalism than it is to imagine an authentically matriarchal society.
Yes, agreed.
All right. So The Walking Dead was a capitalist product that was portraying a fictional dystopian society in the future, and trying to say, like, oh, well, based off of our stuff, what could happen? Blah,
well,
blah, blah.
but it's
not. It's not a portrayal of an authentically matriarchal society. It's a portrayal of a quasi matriarchal society that's post-capitalism. All right, like, it's doing exactly what I said, right? Like, that's the easiest way to sum up our book. There's a few things that you need, a few different, like, sayings that you could say, like, really sum it up, and that's one of them. Is it's easier to imagine the end of capitalism than it is to imagine an authentically matriarchal society. If you get that and you can memorize it, you're gonna be just fine when you go down and you do the catabasis, right?
That's fair.
If you die before you die, you won't die when you die. It's basically saying the same thing. Right? What's another one? You got to follow your nose. Gnosis, right? That's one of those things, is that, we do not have the gnosis to understand how a matriarchal society would have valued pungent pussies.
Right.
We do not possess that gnosis.
I could think.
No, you can only think about how your agricultural inherited
my
mindset
mind would say,
and your patriarchal mindset
that
you've inherited since birth.
Yeah.
Johnny, you are incapable of doing it unless you are capable of going through the Cerberusian catabasis. If you can figure out, you want me to help you, guide you to how Cerberus can tear you apart, past, present, and future, limb to limb, eat you, consume you, pass you through the belly of the beast, and shit you out as a new being.
All right, what do you got for a conclusion for episode 1? I would love to. Can you pour it into 2 minutes?
Okay, so I'm gonna be an asshole.
Yeah,
and
be an
basically
asshole. I don't care.
With that classic satirist tradition of shaming your audience.
Okay, good.
Just to expose their preconceived notions. So if you want to understand anything going on in our book, and if you want to be a person that pretends to understand anything that's going on in our book, there's a few books that you have to have read prior to. So I'm going to give you a short list, and this is just off the top of my head. It's not exhaustive, right? It's not an exhaustive list. But you have to have read Lucian. If you've never read Lucian, you're not going to understand anything that's going on in our book.
Sure.
And if you have never read Lucian, you have no business talking about anything about ancient Greek.
That's me.
So, and it's also Sloppy Dan. So fuck Dan McKellen.
Well, I agree. I admit to not knowing anything. So
yeah,
Sloppy Dan.
Sloppy Dan doesn't. Sloppy Dan passes it off as though he has actually read any of this shit and he's qualified, but he's never read Lucian, so his opinion on anything outside of the Bible doesn't matter.
Go.
All right, you have to have read Aristophanes.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter how much of it you have read. You have to have read at least some and familiarize yourself with it.
Okay.
All right, even if you've looked at the Wikipedia page, that's a step forward to understanding anything going on in the book. All right, you have to have read Horace. You have to have read Ovid. You have to have read Nonus.
Nonus. Okay.
A lot of the old stuff, and then we'll skip through the the Dark Ages, because none of that shit matters.
Yeah.
It's all Christian gobbledygook.
No.
You have to have read Karl Marx.
Okay.
You have to have read Hegel. You have to have read Kierkegaard.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have read Friedrich Nietzsche. That's required reading. If you've never read Friedrich Nietzsche, if you've read Friedrich Nietzsche and you've never read Lucian, you've never read Friedrich Nietzsche. So those two go hand in hand. So you can't understand Lucian. I'm going to jump back a little bit to the ancient stuff. You've got to read the Orphic hymns. If you don't know about the Orphic hymns, none of this is going to make any goddamn sense to you. And none of the shit that any of these other writers are going to say
doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. Go on.
The ancient Greek papyri. Good luck.
Still.
The magical papyri. Good luck. You got to read that stuff. You've got to read Homer. That's also required.
I haven't read any of it.
You haven't read any of this, is why the book doesn't make any sense to you.
I know. Go on.
So we'll jump back to the closer to our period of time. Right?
Yeah.
You've got to have read Heidegger. Otherwise, any of the being and time stuff that I said doesn't make any sense.
I've read a little bit of that. Yeah.
You have to have read the Critique of Technology. Otherwise,
read a little bit of that.
None of what I'm saying is making any fucking sense to you. Familiarize yourself with Deleuze. There's a bunch of Deleuze in the book. There's a bunch of Deleuze in everything that we just said prior. What else? There's a few other ones. Zizek's a good place to read.
Okay, Zizek is
read some
I like Zizek. Yeah.
You have to have taken your Jordan Peterson books and used them as toilet paper. That's necessary. And also, first and foremost, one of the most important things.
Well, can you say...
Hang on.
Okay, go on.
Let me finish this. One of the most important books to this entire project is the Principia Discordia.
Yes.
So if you have not familiarized yourself with the Principia Discordia, front and back, none of this is going to make any sense to you.
There is no front and back. That's funny.
And your opinion does not matter about what you think my book, our book is, our book's worth and how it fits into the satirical tradition or any of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of it matters. You have to have read that, and you have to have read Finnegan's Wake. Right? Like, none of this would be capable.
It's a lot of fucking reading. That's a big
it's
book.
a lot of reading that you have to have read, right?
It's a big book. It's over there. It's so fucking big.
You have to have read The Golden Bough. James Frazier, Golden Bough. You have to have read that. What's the one? The White Goddess by Robert. What's that one? Doesn't matter. His names aren't really real. Doesn't fucking matter. But you have to have read that book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of books that you have to have read. Otherwise, your opinion is completely useless when it comes to reading our book. And you have never read pretty much any of the books that I've.
No, 97% of those books I've never read.
Yeah, but you wrote the book.
Yeah. No, I scribed it. I took it down. I took it word for word, and I put it into paper, and put it into existence. Right. I made it a thing that's real. And I didn't judge any fucking line of it. In fact, there were lines where after I got a hard copy, and I go, shit, I didn't know that was in there. God damn it. That's going to get us a lot of trouble.
You have to have read Amon Hillman. You have to have read Karl Ruck.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a lot of this stuff isn't going to make any sense.
Do you...
So you're asking, what are the sources for my book?
No.
All of this, and you have to have gone through the footnotes in all of these books.
I'm not asking
combed through the sources and read their sources.
No, I'm not asking sources. I'm not
telling you. I'm telling Medea. I'm telling the audience.
I'm telling you. What is your ultimum? Like, what are you trying to do? Do you have one? You don't have to say it. You don't have to give the fucking. You don't have to give the fucking hand away. But
here's what I'm trying to do with the book. I'm trying to pick up where the ancient Greek cynics left off. Right. The ancient Greek cynics did not understand the Cerberusian catabasis.
Yeah.
Because they were still fundamentally in the mindset of the as above. They were still in this city-dwelling sort of idea where they were
Yeah.
like, live like a dog, but do it in the city,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What that does, all right,
Yeah.
what they achieved is half of the catabasis.
Yeah.
They were eaten by Cerberus, all 3 heads, and then got stuck in the belly
Oh.
of the beast. What I'm trying to do is to teach the audience how to complete the catabasis and be rebirthed as a new being
Mm-hmm.
through the true catabasis, the Cerberesian catabasis. Because a lot of the catabasis stories have to do with the Orphic catabasis, or the one that Dionysus does in the frogs, and all of these, these are agricultural catabasis, where I'm talking about a chthonic and rhizomatic Cerberesian authentic catabasis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you have to understand that Hekate is.
Well, thank you, everyone. This was episode 1 of the Towel of Minerva, the skeleton key to the book 1 of the Towel of Minerva.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck.
I'm more confused than when we started. So,
Hail Chewie.
hail Chewie. Hail Chewie. Hail Eris.
Hekate.
Hail Hekate. Hail
Hail Medea.
Medea. Good night.
Cerberus.